You're welcome back from that break. You're still watching MX24 News. Remember, this bulletin is live on our Facebook page at MX24GH. Now to our big discussion for tonight. A report by a French-based non-government organization, Promediation, has estimated that between 200 and 300 young people in Ghana have been integrated into various jihadist groups, including the GSIM, GNIM, and EIGS Katibas. The April 2022 reports, which also suggests that these armed groups, in particular armed jihadist groups, are likely establishing their rare bases in illicit trafficking zones, especially around Boko and other gold mining sites. Already, it says armed groups have gradually taking over some of these areas. Moreover, the report also speaks to an expansion of the activities of these groups in several localities in the 5 regions that make up the northern Ghana, which includes Upper West, Upper East, Northeast, Northern, and then Savannah. The worrying part of this report is the fact that after undergoing training in these training camps in the Sahel by these terrorist groups, these young recruits are then sent back into their villages of origin, in particular to engage in what they describe as religious persuasion. It's on the back of this report that we want to assess the recruitment regime of some of these terrorist groups. How do they even identify some of these recruits who may have been already integrated into our system? And what can the security agencies do better? And also, we would want to analyze Ghana's government see something, say something campaign. How far with that? Is it yielding result? Will it even help us combat the terrorism attacks that is fast spreading? Now, joining us for this discussion are Dr. Adam Bonaa. He's security expert. Adib Sani is also executive director at the Jatike Center for Human Security and Peace Building. We'll later be joined by Peter Lancheni-Tobu. He's a member of Parliament for Wa West and a member of the Defense and Interior Committee of Parliament. Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you for your time here on the news.
Good evening.
Let me begin with you, Dr. Adam Bonaa. Do you have a sense of what some of these terrorist groups look out for when they are recruiting their members? Tell us.
Well, once again, good evening to your viewers and my colleagues on the other side, Honorable Peter Lancheni, my brother, and Adib Sani, my colleague. Well, with regards to your question, there are several things they take into consideration when they have to recruit. And most often, they would come into a community where it's probably very an impoverished community. Look at, the men and those who probably are strong enough to and don't have anything to do. Those who probably either are lurking around the area, don't have any work to do. These are people that can easily be recruited into what do you call it, this terrorist cells. And so as far as I am concerned, there are several things they take into consideration. They come in and most often they promise them, they won't tell you they are recruiting you to go and radicalize you or take you through some tutorials that will lead you into becoming a terrorist or encouraging others to join them. But they come in promising you lucrative jobs, either in Niger or recruiting you and promising you for some work somewhere. And so you are likely to join them because then they know that if they come in and straight away they tell you this is what we want you to go and do, you might not want to do it. Sometimes they come in with a lot of money in the bag. And once they come in with a lot of money in the bag, that alone acts as an incentive. If you know how much criminals in this country will take just to assassinate another human being, you will, probably will be surprised. You will not be surprised to know that most of these people can easily be lured into training facilities around the Sahel with as little as 1,000 cedis or 2,000 cedis, because for their entire life in these impoverished villages, they probably have not seen they've not seen 10 million cedis. They don't mention it as 1,000 cedis. They will say 10 million cedis, 20 million. They've never seen it before. They don't have good houses with good, they lack the amenities that probably those of us in the cities have. And so as far as I'm concerned, they look at how impoverished the community is, and once they infiltrate, it becomes very difficult to de-radicalize some of these people who are usually sent out there for training and brought back, and sometimes they act on their behalf. And there's evidence that the recent publication and other publications from other local researchers, there's evidence that Ghanaians have been, young people in Ghana have been involved in terror activities across the world, and in fact in this, in the Sahel.
Doc, thank you for those initial comments. I'll come back to you. Please stay with us. Let me go to Adib Sani, who is on the other line. Adib, were you surprised by the fact that more than 200 young Ghanaians have been recruited? I mean, Doc has already hinted on the fact that there could be monetary enticement that could have resulted in some of these young people joining these jihadist groups. But beyond the monetary aspect, what could really have caused Ghanaians or some young people to decide to join this group, with or without the initial knowledge that these groups they were joining were jihadist groups?
Well, I agree with Doc 100%. We have some who are recruited without knowing that this is what they're going to do. So on one hand, we have conscious potential recruits. And on the other hand, we have unconscious potential recruits. Like he rightly mentioned, the money is part and all that. But you see, we attach a great deal of emotions to two major issues. One, ethnicity and religion. And so if I want to recruit, the easiest way to get you would be to tell you that there are some people who are fighting us. They want to push us into extinction because we are this tribe, or because we are Muslims, or because we're that. Okay, so some join or get radicalized by these groups because they use all sorts of materials online to get them into thinking that somebody is after their religion. Okay, and I've also always stated that for terrorists, there's no military solution to it. You know, the whole terrorism thing has been constricted to militarization with the various operations, Operation Bakan, Joint Task Force, Accra Initiative, G5, Sahel, and a whole host of others. But you see, the more terrorists you kill, the more you create. And that is a problem, and that is why we still haven't really made any significant strides. And the last bit of it has got to do with a disturbing fact stemming from the report that we saw, which stated that the 200 to 300 recruits from Ghana are usually trained for about 6 weeks. And after that, they return to their community. So now, we are not fearing the fact that someone would come from somewhere to try to recruit young people, but the recruitment is happening in our localities, in our communities, by members of those communities. And that is disturbing because that complicates our ability to detect the activities of these terrorists. Above all, issues of youth unemployment, especially, that is pushing young people into uncertainty, it's making them desperate, it's making them belligerent, issues of marginalization, and that is why we need to pay attention to this Fulani, issue. Some time ago, there was some killings of some Fulanis in Zakoli, near Yendi. To what extent have investigations been conducted? So these are issues worth looking at, so we don't have, anyone encouraged to take up arms against the state.
Adib, thank you for that. Let me go back to Dr. Bonaa. Doc, do you see more people getting recruited in the coming days, looking at the fact that in recent times Ghana has been facing economic challenges, and if these people are being enticed by money in the first place? Could we have more people joining? And since they have already been integrated in our communities, what is the likelihood that more people can join the groups?
As for the likelihood of more people joining the group, I couldn't have agreed with Adib, with most of the things more. If you look at I initially alluded to the issue of how, terrorists are recruited and how they are radicalized is multifaceted. And he mentioned a very important segment which has to do with, people's religion. People are so attached to their religion, and especially their tribes. And so apart from the monetary enticement and the others, these are things that if the leaders of this country are paying attention to, they would have to work quickly to addressing them. And I have mentioned it severally. If you saw a Fulani person and thought that person was not a human being, then obviously your second lady is not a human being because she is a pure Fulani. She's not 50-50. The father is a Fulani, the mother is a Fulani. Samira the mother is Fulani, the father is Fulani. And I have my cousins who are Fulanis. Okay? And so as far as I'm concerned, we have first generation Fulani, second generation, third generation, you can't count them. But unfortunately, people mention Fulani, and the first thing that comes to other people's mind is, hey, they are this. And the stereotyping is not good. Then when you look at the number of people who are likely to be radicalized, as we speak, this report or this survey that was conducted and the report published is pointing to a situation where 200 to 300 people. But, usually a survey, you want to go behind the scene and look at other things that probably the survey didn't look at or the research didn't look at. As we speak, they are done with the research. How many other people, the multiplier effect? Because then if 200-300 people went and they came back, then you are supposed to be training, a facilitator, training, a trainer that's supposed to train other people. You've been trained to train other people. So when they come in, and if each of them is supposed to train 4 or 5 people or get 4 or 5 people trained up to their level, or maybe about 80% to whatever training these other first people have been given. Multiply that by 300, 5 by 300, then you would know that if the number is just like, what do you call it, the Ponzi scheme, where you bring, and so the numbers would keep going up almost every day. What are we doing about it? And for me, you don't fight terrorism by slogans. You don't fight terrorism by some of the things we are doing in this country.
Don't by slogan, do you mean the See Something, Say Something campaign?
The See Something, Say Something. Have you heard about it again? When was the last time, media houses like yourselves talked about it?
I think just about a week ago, the defense minister was urging parliamentarians to get involved in the campaign, but that was just about it. That
was just about it. Unfortunately, you don't sit in parliament and fight. It's not possible to be in parliament, fight terrorism through parliament. My point is that there are several local CSOs, the Jatike Adib's organization, you have Butaro. There are some of these young colleagues of mine who have gone into the hinterland to conduct, surveys, rich surveys. We haven't done anything to this service. We haven't really called them to a table and say, what do you need to be able to help us fight this canker called terrorism in this country? And so if you see something, say something. I mean, Adib was talking about Zakoli area. There are others who have done work in other areas. So my point is that if Adib, you can ask Adib whether how many times has he been engaged by the National Security Ministry or by the powers that be. My point is that you don't fight terrorism by just appointing ambassadors. When you do that, you bastardize the whole thing. Yet, as we speak, it has to take another organization to conduct the research and come and tell us that 200-300 people have been recruited, brought back to, come and infiltrate and do other things. After a week, if we are not careful, this whole thing goes quiet. Then before you see, and they do that intelligently. The idea is that the day they strike us, instead of probably in a community or in a town or in a city, and you have everybody saying what they did was wrong, you will have a certain segment of the community actually supporting it because they have been able to probably radicalize about 1% of the population. And once they do that, that is why fighting terrorism in the Sahel, fighting terrorism in Nigeria and other locations have become very difficult. And like my colleague Adib Sani said, you know what, you kill one terrorist like Osama bin Laden. Osama bin Laden, when the Americans were going after him, what did he say? He says when you kill Osama bin Laden, you haven't done anything. You have really not, cut the root of terrorism. Today, Americans went to Afghanistan. What happened to them? They were chased out of America with their tails in between their legs, and they had to fly out of Afghanistan. So my point is that the issue of fighting terrorism is something that some of us are expecting our leaders. Let's find local solutions to fighting this canker of terrorism.
Doc,
what has happened is that
I'll come back to you on the local solutions in fighting terrorism, but let me go back to Adib. We are still trying to reach Peter Tobu to join us. But Adib, how close are we to a terrorist attack with this integration of some of these young people in our community? How close is the country?
Very close. We've been very close since 2016, when there was an attack at the Grand Bassam in Ivory Coast. Indeed, immediately after the attack, there was a National Security Council meeting in which it was established that Burkina Faso and Ivory Coast have been attacked, and the next targets would be Ghana and Togo. And that was in 2016. Today, we know what is going on in Togo. It's almost a daily ritual. Just yesterday, there was an attack that lasted up. So this morning, I don't know whether it was still ongoing. Last week, there were a number of attacks also. So we are actually at the crossroads. It is a make or break moment for us. And when this see something, say something came, I mean, we praised it. My senior colleague, Doctor, also praised it. Because we felt that it's a great initiative because government alone can't do it. The government needs other stakeholders to support. Unfortunately, we made rubbish of it by appointing ambassadors in the first place, something that is unheard of in any part of the world. And the whole see something has become an Accra thing, only in Accra. Go beyond Accra, people don't know anything about it. And go to the most precarious of places, Hamile, Paga, Gulu, and the rest. I mean, you go and ask anybody if they've heard anything like see something. It will sound very strange to them. These are the most critical places that people should really know about. Because when these terrorists come in, some of them would want to settle, and they need accommodation. So if landlords are made to understand that when people come to rent your facility, you need to ask questions, that would help. For some, it's all about the money. I mean, they don't ask where they are coming from, what work they do, what exactly their intentions are. We just grab the money and let them be. And that's not how it's supposed to be. So I think there's still a window of opportunity for us to be able to improve it. Like Doc mentioned, national security or government should sit down with the stakeholders that are already very active on the ground and who know the terrain more than even national security itself. So we see how that can be clearly fashioned out to have its effects on the ground.
Adib, Doc wanted to ask you one-on-one whether you have been engaged by government in any of your researches you have conducted on terrorist attack. If you can just briefly speak on that for us. Have you been engaged by government?
I haven't engaged. Nobody has engaged me, rather. Government hasn't engaged me. And this is something that we've been talking about for far too long. And it makes you wonder whether really they have ears to listen. Okay, so the see something is an Accra thing, and it's not going anywhere. And until government engages civil society and other stakeholders, even the media, has government engaged you on see something?
Not yet.
Good. So that's the problem.
So how do we identify? I know it's difficult to actually see your colleague or your neighbor or your brother and say that this person looks like somebody who has been recruited into a jihadist group. But is there any security measure or I don't know how to put it, but is there any
red flag
to look out for when you see some of these people? How do you identify them?
Well, sometimes difficult to tell. Even with the intelligence agencies, sometimes they are able to operate without them finding out. But that notwithstanding, it is that we are alert, we are conscious about happenings in our communities. You don't look at somebody's face and tell whether he's a terrorist or not. And please, I think this is very important. Bearded men are not terrorists. I think this has to sink deep with Ghanaians.
Thank you for bringing that up. Thank you for bringing that up.
Terrorists wouldn't want to appear so obvious, so conspicuous. I mean, once you see them. I
think we have an image of Osama bin Laden with all the beards drawn, and so people just associate bearded guys with terrorists. That's just on the lighter side.
It's ignorance, and not all Arabs are terrorists. Richard Reed, who attempted bombing an airliner with a bomb in his shoe, is a Westerner. He's a white Westerner. Okay, Al-Laki, who was killed in the UN drone strike that became very controversial in Yemen, is a white American. We have so many other terrorists who are white Americans and very unassuming. Okay,
Timothy McVeigh.
So the terrorists would want to appear like Dr. Adam Bonaa and myself, you know. So they are able to blend with the population. Okay, so please, the stereotyping must stop. But that notwithstanding, we need to pay attention to detail. When you see certain individuals with blueprints of sensitive infrastructure, okay, like the Jubilee House, like Silver Star Tower, and all that. Meanwhile, the person is not an architect. He doesn't work there. So why do you have blueprints? You know why? Because they surveil the place. They know the entry, the exit points. And terrorists have a modus operandi. They, first of all, detonate a primary explosive. And when the people run towards a certain direction, then the secondary explosive goes off and they start shooting. Okay. So before they are able to do that, they should have a blueprint, an architectural design of the whole edifice so they are able to inflict the maximum damage. Secondly, when you see people secretly taking pictures and videos of sensitive infrastructure, like critical infrastructure, such as the electricity grid, the water system, where it is clearly written, no photographs here, you have to ask questions. When you see bags that are unattended to, over a period of time, don't think God has answered your prayer and there's money in it and you can just go pick it up. You need to draw the attention of the appropriate authorities. But I think the important thing for us to do is to be alert and to be conscious at all times.
Adib, it's always a pleasure and very educative listening to you. But let me wrap up with Dr. Adam Bonaa. Doc, you wanted to talk about measures government can put in place to ensure that we are better prepared for any terrorist attack. Can you do this for me in 2 minutes?
Well, I think what some of us are expecting government to do is to ensure that they move away from the traditional way of gathering intelligence. And the traditional way of gathering intelligence, they politicized it. And so you will have national security, people supposedly working with national security who have no clue of what intelligence gathering is. Go into the hinterlands, recruit teachers, recruit nurses, recruit media men, recruit people who traditionally would not be intelligence officers, train them, give them the basic knowledge and intelligence gathering, how to spot, like my colleague Adi did allude, he mentioned a series of them, so I won't go there. Train these people, give them basic training. If terror cells are training our indigents for 6 weeks, we as a country should be able to train some selected Ghanaians, give them 6 weeks of some training, and also, deploy them. Let them around the border areas and some of the communities, so that when they spot these things, they know how to respond. But unfortunately, there is, people with go-ters and what have you, who supposedly are called national security operatives and are supposed to be trained to be doing it. Meanwhile, they have no clue. So I think that let's move away from the traditional national security or intelligence operative guy to the non-traditional way of doing it. That is another way of fighting terrorism. That is what I mean by local solutions.
Doc, thank you
some part of the local
solutions. Thank you for
yes.
those insightful message and comments. It's always good speaking with you. But that's it for tonight's edition of MX24 News. I want to thank my two guests who made time to join us so much for their education. But for more news, log on to mx24online.com. My name is Ajwa Tenkwama Domina. Have a good evening.
Hello viewers, you're welcome to GH Schools. Another admission season is here with us. And this June, July, August, we are opening our admissions again and we are accepting students. My name is Leslie Adolistowell, Director of GH Schools. Let me start with our media school. We have 4 departments in there. We have journalism and media